Adam Met is the founder of Planet Reimagined and a UN sustainability advocate. He joins me now from New York. Appreciate you being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So in his special address on World Environment Day Wednesday, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for a clampdown on the fossil fuel industry, accusing those companies of spending billions of dollars on deceiving the public. He also highlighted the hottest global months on record and listed what world leaders, financial institutions, activists, and of course the rest of us can do to try to address the climate change crisis. Now, you were there in the audience and heard his ambitious plan and call for urgent action. What did you think, and how achievable is all this, do you think?
So when I was sitting there and listening to his speech, I was surrounded by people from all different walks of life, financial institutions, governments from around the world, even climate influencers from Instagram and TikTok. And his speech was in equal parts an emergency and hope. I think that there is so much that all of the people who are in the room and who heard the speech can do, and everyone plays a different role. I mean, financial institutions can obviously contribute money, but then there are people who need to implement the solutions. And he laid out a really comprehensive plan. There were 33 calls to action in his speech, and I want to get into some of those with you.
All right, certainly. We'll do that in just a moment because the world still relies heavily, of course, on fossil fuels. But despite his attack on that industry, the Secretary General wants fossil fuel companies to help lead the way in the shift towards renewable energy. How realistic is that, given these companies make so much money from fossil fuels and have very little incentive to help any effort to shift away from them?
Yeah, again, the Secretary General's message was quite a balanced one. He started by calling the fossil fuel companies the godfathers of climate chaos and called on people around the world to stop investing in advertising that supports fossil fuel companies. But at the same time, he called for potential. He said that they really could be the leaders of the renewable energy transition. And one of the biggest solutions that we're working on now is something that we're doing at Planet Reimagined to engage with fossil fuel companies, especially these smaller independent producers, to help them transition, help them put renewable energy projects on top of their current oil and gas land. They really can be the leaders if they put their mind to it and the political will.
Indeed. And Secretary General Guterres said that nearly 10 years since the Paris Agreement was adopted, the target of limiting long-term global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius is hanging by a thread. He listed multiple different calls to action, as you referred to there. So what do we all need to be doing right now to make a difference and turn this climate crisis around?
So there were calls to action for all of the different groups, from financial institutions to governments. But one of the ones that is closest to my heart and closest to all of our hearts is voting. He was very clear about this. He said that's the number one call to action. There are 64 countries around the world that are having elections this year. And when you think about that, there's so much opportunity. Mexico just voted in for president a climate scientist. That's an incredible move towards supporting climate action. And if you think about voting, most people say, oh, my vote doesn't count. There's a young woman named Molly Cook who just won her primary for the Texas State House. She won her primary by 74 votes. Just 74 votes. And she is a big advocate for revamping public transportation, which is a huge climate issue. Now, if you think about voting, you might think, okay, I'm voting for somebody and they're just going to be in office and they're not really going to do anything. In the last handful of years, the United States passed the largest climate package in history. The Inflation Reduction Act supported so many climate things just for individuals in addition to on the policy side. And what I mean by that is it made climate action more accessible for us. It made electric vehicles cheaper. It made it easier for us to buy solar energy. It allowed us to put heat pumps in our homes, made it far cheaper for us and more accessible. If you think about voting as an action that happens once a year, once every 2 years, once every 4 years, then you don't think of it as impactful. But if you think of it as a way to create the policies that impact your day-to-day lives, then it becomes so much more immediate and so much more important. So I think that's why the Secretary General really focused on voting as the key call to action here.
Some very good advice there. Adam Met, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.